Echoes of the forgotten vault renate. Richter stepped out of Mr. Weber's office into the crisp autumn air of late October 2025, her arms laden with a folder thick as a family Bible. The leaves on the maples lining Elm Street were turning a defiant crimson, as if the trees themselves were shedding their burdens with a flourish she envied. At 71, Renate had spent decades pruning her own life into neat, obedient shapes, clipping back the wild branches of resentment, watering the roots of obligation until they choked her, but now with the ink still, drying on her new will and a locksmith's number programmed into her phone. She felt the first stirrings of a reckless bloom. The confrontation with Max and Lena had been a week ago, yet the echo of the slammed door lingered like a bruise. She changed the locks that very afternoon, the metallic clicks a symphony of finality. The security cameras arrived the next day, their unblinking eyes mounted above the porch like silent sentinels. And the new bank account? It was a fortress, its coordinates known only to her and the notary who'd witnessed the transfer. 33,400, the number haunted her, not as a loss, but as a ledger of liberation. For the first time in 3 years, her checking balance didn't dip into the red abyss of familial debt. It hovered steady in hers, like a held breath finally released. She walked home slowly, the folder tucked under her arm, pausing at the corner bakery she'd bypassed for months in favor of grocery. Runs for Max and Lena's. Emergencies. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, and the scent of cinnamon and fresh yeast wrapped around her like an old friend's embrace. "Mrs. Richter, it's been ages," called Frau Müller from behind the counter, her flour-dusted apron a badge of unapologetic warmth. Renate ordered a Schnecken, sticky, indulgent, forbidden fruit in her frugal world, and savored it on a wrought iron. Bench outside, the pastry crumbling sweetly against her tongue. No calls interrupted her. No texts buzzed with pleas disguised as apologies. Just the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city waking up. That evening, as twilight painted her living room in shades of bruised plum, Renate sat at the dining table, the same one where Mr. Fisher had rifled through her papers like a thief in broad daylight. She opened the folder, spreading out the documents like a war map. Mr. Weber had been thorough. Affidavits cataloging every transfer. Gift receipts time-stamped like accusations. Even emails from Lena sweet-talking her into just one more loan. Elder financial abuse, he'd called it, his voice grave but kind, like a doctor diagnosing a long-ignored cancer. "We build the case brick by brick, Mrs. Richter. They won't touch you again," she nodded, tracing the total at the bottom. 30,400s, but as her fingers drifted over the papers, they brushed something unexpected, a yellowed envelope, wedged between the folds of her late husband Heinrich's will from 2012. It must have been overlooked in the shuffle of estate paperwork, buried like a seed in winter soil. The envelope was sealed with red wax, imprinted with Heinrich's monogram, H.R., intertwined like their wedding rings. Her heart stuttered. Heinrich had been gone 12 years, taken by a sudden heart attack in the workshop where he tinkered with clocks and dreams. She'd kept his tools dusted, his workbench sacred. But this was new. With trembling hands she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of linen stationery, Heinrich's meticulous script filling the page, in black ink that hadn't faded. "My dearest Renate," it began, the words blurring as tears welled unbidden. "If you're reading this, my love, it's because the shadows have lengthened, and our boy has cast one too long. I write this not in sorrow, but in the quiet certainty of a father who sees the man his son might become or fail to be. Max is 23 now, full of fire and folly, the kind that burns bright but consumes if not tended. I've watched him these past months, since the diagnosis pinned me to this chair. He visits, yes, but his eyes wander to the clock, to his phone, to the life beyond these walls. He speaks of dreams, big ones, city lights and corner offices, but not of roots, not of the soil we tilled together. You, Renate, are the steady heart of us. You gave him breath, I gave him stories, but together we gave him the world. Yet I fear he mistakes our gifts for givens, our love for a bottomless well. If he drains it dry, as sons sometimes do in their blindness, do not let guilt be your chain. There is a vault, my love, a secret one, hidden in plain sight. The key is in the old cuckoo clock, behind the weights. It opens not to gold, but to wisdom. A trust fund I set aside from my patents. $250,000, earmarked for your security alone. No strings to Max, no whispers of inheritance until you deem him worthy. Use it for you, travel the Rhine as we dreamed, paint the canvases you shelved, or simply sit in the sun without tallying the cost. But if he comes knocking, as I suspect he will, show him this letter. Let him read his father's measure of him, not in anger, Renate, but in truth. For only in facing the man he could disappoint does he become the man we raised. I love you beyond the ticking of time. Heinrich. October 15th, 2012. Renate. Sob echoed in the empty room, raw and ragged. Heinrich, ever the clockmaker, had wound this message like one of his intricate mechanisms, set to chime at the precise hour of reckoning. The cuckoo clock hung in the hallway, a Black Forest heirloom he'd restored with his own hands, its carved pine birds frozen mid-flight. She rose, legs unsteady, and approached it as if it were a confessional. The weights dangled like pendulums of fate, brass spheres etched with alpine scenes. Behind them, taped discreetly, was a small brass key, its head shaped like a lily, Heinrich's signature flourish, the vault. She'd forgotten it entirely. Heinrich had mentioned a safety deposit box once, in passing, but grief had blurred the edges of memory. With the key in hand, she drove to the First National Bank the next morning. The envelope clutched like a talisman. Mr. Klein, her branch manager, greeted her with raised eyebrows. Mrs. Richter? Twice in a week. To what do I owe the pleasure? Legacy, she said simply, sliding the key across the polished oak desk. He led her to the vault, a labyrinth of steel drawers humming with secrets. Box 147 opened with a soft click, revealing stacks of bearer bonds, a velvet pouch of heirloom jewelry, and a ledger detailing the trust, $250,000, accrued with interest to nearly $320,000 by 2025, invested conservatively in blue-chip stocks and municipal bonds, untouchable by anyone but her. No cosigners, no automatic withdrawals, just her name, in Heinrich's looping cursive. She emerged into the sunlight dazed, the weight of the portfolio in her satchel lighter than the stone in her chest. This wasn't just money. It was Heinrich's faith in her, a bulwark against the storm Max and Lena had unleashed. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine. A cruise down the Danube, watercolors in a Provençal villa, a donation to the women's shelter downtown, acts of grace for herself and others, not penance for a son who'd bartered her dignity for comfort. But peace, like dawn, is fleeting when wolves prowl. That afternoon, as Renate unpacked the bonds at her kitchen table, her phone lit up with a blocked number. She almost silenced it. Boundaries were her new religion. But curiosity, that old temptress, won. Renate, it's Diana, from Chicago. Your sister, remember? Diana's voice was a gust of wind from the Midwest, brassy and unfiltered. Diana, how? Max called me. The little weasel. Said you're unwell, that you've cut them off. Barricaded yourself in that house like Miss Havisham. Begged me to fly down and talk sense into you. As if I haven't seen through his charm since he was knee-high and stealing my lipstick. Renate laughed, a sound rusty from disuse. Diana, 5 years her junior, had always been the sparrow to her dove. Flighty, fierce, unapologetically free. Widowed young herself, she'd rebuilt in Chicago, with a string of art galleries and a heart that collected strays. He's desperate, then? Desperate? Honey, he's drowning. Rent's 3 months behind. Lena's maxed out every card and that lawyer they hired. Fisher, he's billing them into oblivion. Max spun it like you're the villain. Mom's gone off the rails. But I pressed him. Told me about the wedding snub. Renate, why didn't you call me sooner? I would have hopped a red-eye with a baseball bat. The dam broke then. Words spilling like the tears Renate had banked for years. She told Diana everything. The ice water revelation, the special people Bob, the invasion with the lawyer, the calculated cruelty, and now the letter, the vault. Diana whistled low. Heinrich, that sly fox. Always one gear ahead. Listen, I'm booking a flight. We'll crack that trust like a piñata and shove the pieces down. Max's throat if we have to. But first you breathe. You're not alone anymore. Diana arrived 2 days later. A whirlwind in leopard print scarves and sensible heels, lugging a suitcase stuffed with vintage dresses and contraband chocolates. The sisters fell into each other's arms on the porch, the security camera whirring indifferently above. Look at you, Diana said, holding Renate at arm's length. Still got that fire in your eyes. Heinrich would have been proud, hell. He'd be toasting with schnapps right now. Over tea in the living room, on the sofa. Renate hadn't yet donated, its cushions still bearing the faint imprint of Lena's pacing. They poured over the letter. Diana's fingers traced the ink as if divining tea leaves. He saw it coming, Renate. The entitlement. Remember how Max was as a teen? That phase where he borrowed Heinrich's tools and never returned them. Your husband clocked it then. This isn't revenge. It's a lesson. Max has to earn his way back. Or not at all, Renate nodded. The words settling like ballast. But what if he never does? What if this is the end of us? Then it's his ending, not yours. You've got a second act now. That trust. It's your ticket. Let's start small. A weekend in the city. No banks, no ledgers, just us. A bottle of Riesling. And every museum from here to the harbor. The weekend became a revelation. They wandered the cobblestone streets of the old quarter, Diana haggling over silk scarves at the market while Renate sketched passers-by in a notebook she'd bought on impulse. At the Maritime Museum, amid towering ship models and tales of explorers, Renate felt Heinrich's presence, a whisper in the salt air, urging her onward. They dined on the waterfront, lobster bisque steaming under strings of lanterns. And for the first time in memory, Renate ate without portioning for ghosts. No scraps for Max's fridge, no denial for her plate. But freedom's glow cast long shadows.